All right, now if you're watching this video, then that means you're ready to start automating your email outreach, and I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. First thing you want to keep in mind is that with email, there's a few more moving parts to automate it than just LinkedIn, like I showed you in the previous lesson. And before you can actually just, upload your list into an email software and start sending emails, there's a few preliminary things you have to do to make sure that your email accounts are okay, they're safe, they don't get blocked, and most importantly, that your emails get delivered to the person's primary inbox, not spam. So Gmail has a lot of restrictions and a lot of regulations in place to prevent spammers and people that are, mass blasting emails to, millions of people and using the tool not the way it's supposed to be done. So essentially, there's a couple things you have to do to make sure that, you don't trigger any of those things at Gmail so that your emails actually get delivered to the person and don't show up in their spam inbox. There's a process you want to go through to set up your emails properly and also to actually warm up your emails. Now we have a really extensive resource and SOP attached here that's going to walk you through the entire process of setting up your email addresses properly and warming them up, which I'll explain what that is. But basically this is like a 2 to 3 week process before you can actually launch your campaigns. So what you do here, I'm just going to overview the steps here and just know that the resource attached covers everything to do step by step with some tutorials. Now first thing you want to do though is actually buy separate domains. So if your domain is companyaa.com, you don't want to be using your main email address and domain to do email outreach because over time, as you're emailing lots of people that don't know you, some of them might mark you as spam. And if that happens too many times over, a few months, then Gmail could actually potentially even block your email address and your domain. And if you were using the same email address for your outreach that you were using for your day-to-day activities and, to talk to your clients, that would be a big problem. So whenever you're doing cold email outreach at a big scale, you want to make sure you always have a throwaway domain and an email address that you're not using for anything else. So basically keep the whole thing separate. So what you want to do is you want to buy a similar domain. So if your company was like companyxyz.com, you can make your other domain companyxyz.net or something like that. So you just buy a similar domain. So essentially what you do is you buy a domain and then you link that up to G Suite and you actually get a new email address. So again, you don't want to be taking your regular everyday email address and emailing prospects at a large scale. So you would get a separate domain, you would get a separate email address for that domain. You'd go through a few steps to set up that email address and authenticate it, such as setting up some records within GoDaddy, like SPF, DKIM, DMARC, and a few other settings to adjust. And once you've got a new domain, once you've got a new email address, once you've set up the records, then you connect it to a warm-up tool. And what that means is basically your email is, sitting in a network for a few weeks and sending emails back and forth to other email addresses just to show Gmail that like, hey, this is a real email and it's having conversations with people. Because again, if you just bought a new email address today and you sent out thousands of emails, it would look very suspicious to Gmail and they would definitely shut down the account. Basically what you want to do is go through this resource step by step, and once your emails are actually in a warm-up tool and warming up for 2 to 3 weeks, then you can launch your campaign, which I'm going to show you how to do next. Now for actually warming up the emails and launching the campaign, there's one tool that I really like that does both of these things, and it's called Instantly.ai. Here's the website. It's an absolutely great tool. And the cool thing is this is the best way to do emails at a larger scale later on. You don't want to go crazy at first because you just got to learn how this works. But once you really want to raise the volume later on, you can have maybe 5 or 10 email addresses because you can't send so many emails per day from each email address. So when you really want to scale the volume later on, you can get more than one email address. And with Instantly.ai, you can upload as many email accounts as you want, as many campaigns as you want, and the price doesn't change. So this is a great tool. Now again, if you're already using a different email marketing tool and you're comfortable with it, totally fine. You don't really need to use this tool. So it's okay if you're already doing this and there's another tool you prefer, because at the end of the day, these tools mostly do the same thing. But no matter what, you need to use an email marketing tool that's specifically made for prospecting, because if you're using something like MailChimp, which is an email marketing tool that's more for like newsletters, that wouldn't be good for prospecting because it's just a different way of email marketing, and you want to be using a tool that's specifically built for this purpose, like Instantly.ai. So in the resource, we walked you through, how to actually connect your email address to Instantly and how to set it up on warm-up. I'm going to show you again just so you can see it on my screen here. But once you actually click Add New and you add your email address to Instantly and you link it up, then you would go over here and go to the settings and then go to warm-up. From here, it would have your settings as far as how many it's sending out per day. Just keep it where it is on 1 email per day, and then keep the limit somewhere around 30. You make sure that read emulation is enabled, and that's really it. Don't worry about the other settings. They're mostly fine at the default. But once you make sure those settings are all right, you just go to warm up, and then you click enable. And that's it. You just let it sit there for 2 to 3 weeks. Let's say it's the beginning of the month and you wanted to launch your automated email campaigns, in the same month. You'd have to do it towards the middle or the end of the month. You want to really just, set up your domains and email addresses, connect them to Instantly, and let them warm up for at least 2 weeks before you launch your campaigns. And also when you launch your campaigns, you can't be sending out tons of emails a day at once. What I recommend is making sure each email address just sends out 5 emails a day, and then just increase it by 1 each day. So on Tuesday, add 1 more, so it's 6 a day, and on Wednesday, add 1 more, so it's 7 a day. And just gradually increase it. Again, whenever we're doing any outreach, we don't want to just go from like 0 to 100 super quick. We want to make sure we're always gradually increasing the volume of what we're doing, just to not trigger any alarms, with Gmail or LinkedIn or whatever platform we're using. So again, you would adjust the settings, you would turn it on a warm up and just let it sit there for 2 to 3 weeks, and then you're pretty much good to go. Now, assuming that that's done and you've waited a few weeks, let me show you how to actually build a campaign. You go to campaigns on the left and click add new. We'll call this test campaign. By now, you should already have a list of email addresses that you maybe have gotten from Apollo.io, like we showed you earlier in the course, or a similar database. And then you would have already wanted to make sure that you verified the email list by uploading it to a tool like NeverBounce that we also showed you earlier in the course. Again, if you're familiar with using other tools, there's a lot of other great ones. Just use whatever you're comfortable with if not, but those are the ones that we normally recommend. So once you have your lead list, you would just click import and upload the CSV, or you could just click use Google Sheets. So I'm going to go to one of our example lead lists here and just upload it. Super easy. So you want to get the link, make sure it's accessible and it's not on private. And then really easy, you just take your Google Sheet link to the leads you have and import it, and it'll add it in here. And here it also shows you the fields that it finds in the spreadsheet. So, your email marketing tool can actually, just like LinkedIn, take the person's first name, it can take their company name, or it can take really any other variables that you want, like their job title, or even the state they're in, or anything else really. And it can actually, automatically put that into your template. So you can kind of add a little bit of customization into your actual message just by doing this. So what you would do is, you would just verify these to make sure that the ones that you actually want to import into your message are the same thing. So if this is the company name, then it should definitely say company name here. If you wanted to have the person's first name in the template, then just make sure the line that says first name is all good and it's all matched up correctly. Then you're good to go. Just click import. And then click upload all. And you want to leave this on where it says check for duplicates across all campaigns. The only reason I'm turning this off is because I've already uploaded these leads, so if I don't turn that off, Instantly won't let me. Only takes a minute, you're good to go. Now your leads are in the campaign and you can actually build your campaigns. So kind of like we showed you with LinkedIn, you just add the different steps and you would just add in your subject line. If you want to add in a custom variable, you would just click here and it would say, hey, first name. Just typing in an example message here. But again, before you're actually going out to do your messaging, you should already have your templates written and in a Google Doc somewhere. So you would just want to copy and paste that into here. So you put your first message in here. One other important thing is that Instantly isn't going to take your email signature. So if you have an email signature already set up in your Gmail, it's not going to copy that over. So you would just want to type it manually here, copy and paste. So just make sure that you're always adding that in the template and then add the next step. Make sure it has the same exact subject line so that it all comes in the same email thread. And then you do the same thing. You add your message 2, you add your message 3, and just go as long as you want for whatever your sequence is. You also want to make sure that you're not sending it, a day apart. So always just have at least 3 or 4 days in between. So you can just choose 3 days, and then Instantly will know to wait 3 days before it sends a follow-up message to get that person's attention. Then you just click save once you have all of your messages written out. Then go to schedule. Now it's going to be auto set to send it Monday through Friday. Just keep it at that. I definitely recommend it. If you send emails on weekends, they might not get open as much. So just keep it for what it is, sending messages, throughout the work week. And then here you have to go to options and click the accounts you want to send your emails from. So if you have a lot of email addresses on here, which as you can see I do, because we run this for ourselves and also a few clients, then you would just want to pick the ones that you want to be for that campaign. And again, you can pick more than one. So if you have more than one that you want to use for that campaign, it'll just actually rotate automatically in between them, which is pretty cool. And don't mess with the settings, just leave them at the default. Open tracking should be on. This is important as well. You should always have it enabled to stop sending emails on reply, so that as soon as someone replies, instantly we'll stop sending the messages, and it'll be up to you to take over and have that conversation and potentially schedule that person into a meeting. And then here's where you adjust this daily sending limits. So again, you can't be going out blasting hundreds or thousands of messages on day one because it would just be too much and it would trigger Google. So in the beginning, just keep it at a few emails per day. Like I recommended earlier, and like you'll also see in the resource, you just want to maybe send 5 emails a day from each email address while still keeping the warm-up on. The warm-up should always be on. But send 5 emails a day per each email address. So if you have 3 email addresses in this campaign, so then in this case, I would keep the max sending limit to 15. That way I'm not sending more than 5 a day. And then max new leads, same thing, 5 per day. And this includes the follow-up as well. So this number right here is like all of the emails total. Max new leads meaning, just how many new prospects are we contacting, just that first email. But this is the total number. And generally I recommend, not going more than 50 emails a day per email account. So, if I have 3 email addresses in this campaign, I would max it out at 150 emails because that would be 50 per day. But I would gradually get there. So I would start at 15 and then every day, maybe for the next month, I would just go bump this up by a couple more. So maybe I would go to 20, then maybe 25, and then just keep gradually raising it until we're actually at 150, which would be, 50 times 3 for the 3 email addresses. I'm not going to launch this because this is just a test campaign, but all you would do is you would click launch and then you'd be good to go. It would just get started within the next 24 hours, which is pretty cool. So it's not a very complicated process. Now, if you want to test a few different campaigns at the same time, which you definitely should, all you do is you just build another campaign and you put the same email addresses in there. Now, keep that in mind though, you have to keep the limits under control. So if you can only send, 50 emails a day per email account, then make sure that if you're doing more than one campaign, you're dividing that equally across the campaigns. So very important that you don't go over the limits. So always keep that in mind. But essentially here on the campaign side, you will see all your campaigns. And what you can do is you can test a few different things. Don't try to test too many things at once. I would either test like the targeting or I would test the messaging. Or you could even test the subject lines. But you could basically take the same messaging and then try like 3 different audiences. Maybe it's like you're trying different states or different countries or something like that, or even different company size. Or you could do it the other way around. You could have the same audience, but you're splitting it up and you're just, trying a different message. So this is the best way to, ultimately find what messaging and what targeting is going to work best is just by running tests. And then you can let them run for a few weeks and then see the results. Because instantly we'll actually show you the analytics and it'll show you all of your campaigns, how many you sent, how many got opened, how many got replied to, and what the reply rate was. And if you see that campaign A has a 6% reply rate and campaign B with different messaging has a 3% reply rate, now you know to get rid of campaign B and you know that something about, campaign A's messaging was better. And let's keep that up. So always be testing. Never just be doing one thing with your marketing campaigns. Always be, trying a few different things at the same time because again, we're always experimenting and we're always looking at the data to see actually what works. Your analytics are in here. You can filter, if you want to look at how you're doing today, how you're doing yesterday, how you're doing for the last 7 days. And also cool thing about Instantly is you can go into the Uni box here and it actually shows you all of the different replies. So you don't actually need to go into your Gmail to reply to people. With Instantly, you can actually manage the replies and respond back to people through the app itself. All right, so that's how you can use Instantly to warm up your emails and launch your email campaigns. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you soon.